Pete and Ollie, can everybody hear me? Just making sure, I'm just waiting. Okay.
Good morning, Chair Volendroff, members Garrett, Holmes, staff, and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Thank you, Gretchen. Deb did a great job while you were gone, but we're glad to have you back. I'm going to now convene the board caucus meeting for Tuesday, October 7th. We will start with our first agenda item, which is Member Holmes giving us a report from the Alcohol Advisory Committee meeting of August 27th. So Member Holmes, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Volendroff and Member Garrett. I want to give just a brief overview of the newly reconvened Alcohol Advisory Council. We held it in Olympia on August 27. And as best we can determine, that was the first meeting since March 30 of 2022. So we had excellent attendance, and I think that in part, can you hear me okay, Jim?
My internet's kind of going in and out, so I think it's just on my side.
Okay.
I maybe need other people to confirm that they can hear and see Member Holmes well.
Yes.
Okay, I think it's on my side,
Great.
Pete. So go ahead, and I'm going to try to fix a few things on this side.
Okay, and since you were at the meeting, Chair Volendroff, I don't think it matters critically that you hear the update. In any event, this was the first meeting since March 30th, 2022. We had excellent attendance, and I think it was really for two reasons. One, that there were a lot of new faces from LCB there, including you, Chair Volendroff, myself, the Director Lucella, as well as our Education Enforcement Director Grant. So there were a lot of new faces on both sides of the table, and we also decided that we wouldn't call the rest of them old timers, but rather veterans. So and unlike the March 30 meeting, which really only had reports from two of the divisions, we gave a full divisional update, and I'm very, very grateful for all of that this was an all hands on deck team effort on the part of LCB, and I think we really did show in a very open and transparent fashion exactly what we're trying to accomplish, and the communications throughout that 2-hour meeting were really, really wonderful. I'm not going to go into detail about it because we've already approved the minutes. Thank you, Deb, for an excellent job on those, and they are posted. So what instead I wanted to do was to apologize first for my cough. I have a lozenge and a hot beverage here, but the amazing thing was about 3 days after the August 27 meeting, I flew to California, came back the following week with my first ever case of COVID. And since then, I have experienced a month later, just the real difficulty in talking. I'm debating whether or not I should be in person there for tomorrow's board meeting. But in any event, I'm really looking forward to the next meeting of the Alcohol Advisory Council. We do intend, like the March 30, 2022 meeting, to have a focus. I'm looking to hear from the industry representatives, the industry members, what areas they would like us to focus on, as opposed to the broad snapshot we gave them in August. So as well as arriving at a convenient date. And I would note that we also haven't quite determined whether or not this is a post or pre-legislative session meeting, because of course early next year, we'll be convening a short session of the legislature. And I think that all the participants there in writ large learn that, of course, that this is a limited budget and legislative session. And so the board is in a lot of ways trying to just continue to make sure we have really good communications, and that we're doing everything we can to discharge our function, which is simultaneously trying to make sure that we have viable industry members while protecting public safety and health. I will close by saying that ended up toward the end of the meeting to be one of the most robust discussions. And Chair Volendroff, I'm so glad you were there because it was a fair question raised and we all weighed in on it and very openly discussed the board's multi-function role. And that is that we can simultaneously be stewards of the industry and make sure that it's a level playing field from a regulatory standpoint, while at the same time remembering our primary mission has to be public health and safety. And so all of the prior discussions, such as getting ready for the World Cup and the 1515 legislation, getting that implemented, I think provided a really good context for the alcohol industry. I think that it was a really good complement to Board Member Garrett's Cannabis Advisory Council. And I'm really looking forward to the discussions that continue. So unless anyone has any questions, I'd like to refer you again to the meeting minutes that have been posted. That's really all I wanted to say as far as a quick recap. I'm grateful for all the participants. I'm grateful for all hands on deck from the agency. Did a great job. Of course, Gretchen and Deb were key elements of making sure that we pulled this off. Our next meeting, we don't have a date yet, but it will be virtual. And again, we'll try to make sure we come up with a good agenda that fits everyone's needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I too thought it was really good. So appreciate you sharing your perspective as well. All right, we'll move right on to our next agenda item, which is a policy and rules team update with Kevin, Jeff, and Denise. And so we'll start with some general updates from Kevin and then move into reports from both Jeff and Denise. Kevin?
Good morning, Chair Volendroff and board members Garrett and Holmes. I hope everybody can hear me. I unfortunately could not hear but a handful of words from board member Holmes, but I could hear Chair Volendroff fine, so I don't know what's going on. But if you can hear me, I'll go ahead and proceed.
I can hear you just fine. My internet seems to have cleared up, so hopefully this will work.
Okay, all right. Well, the rules team keeps chugging along with 13 current rulemaking projects open at various stages in the process. I'm happy to report that with Daniel's return this week, the rules team is back to full capacity at a critical phase when we'll be moving past the initial informal comment period on several of the projects initiated this summer, and active stakeholder engagement is slated to begin. We filed a CR 101 on September 24th, responding to a petition that was accepted well over a year ago related to cannabis harvest dates on labels. And we've already received some feedback on that one, both for and against. And this brings us up to date, having now cleared the backlog of pending rulemaking projects responding to public petitions.
Great.
We have also filed all of the necessary CR 101s to initiate rules projects in response to legislation passed during this last year's session. And so that only leaves the CR 105 package that combines various updates to dozens of rules to be filed. And I hope to present that one at the board today, but given all of the other more pressing rule projects requiring our attention of late, we just haven't had the capacity to prioritize that one, particularly given that the rules implicated it's essentially a formality at this point, given that licensing fees and forms have already been updated or at least in the queue to be updated. Looking ahead, Jeff will be requesting approval to file the CR 103 to adopt the proposed rules regarding acceptable IDs for both cannabis and alcohol following my update. We also sent a Gov delivery notice just this week to stakeholders to advise that we are resuming the cannabis advertising rulemaking that has been on pause now for over a year in order to align the existing rules with Engrossed Senate Bill 5206. An informal comment period for this project will run through the end of the month. Let's see here. Internal project team discussions and preliminary drafting efforts are well underway for cannabis R&D testing and samples, cannabis retail management agreements, and contract kitchens for breweries as we approach the end of the initial informal comment period later this month. We are currently coordinating with the respective project teams to finalize next steps, which will include sharing preliminary draft rules and scheduling stakeholder feedback sessions to engage constructively with interested parties as we move into the next phase on each of these projects. And speaking of stakeholder engagement, we have been actively working with stakeholders over the past month on a couple of our ongoing rules projects. First, we held 2 retail alcohol product placement rulemaking stakeholder sessions during the last week of September to discuss draft updates. The sessions were well attended, and we received both words of appreciation for the changes we made in response to previous feedback, as well as some really good constructive feedback on further issues to consider. We are certainly getting closer to a final draft, but we will likely make a few additional changes and float another draft for public review before we advance to the 102 phase for that one. And then additionally, because this one isn't legislatively mandated and there are public concerns regarding increased cost associated with the rule, we'll probably need to do a thorough economic analysis, which could require us to contract out, and it could take a few months to complete that. We've also been continuing ongoing discussions with stakeholders, including Representative Reed, the primary bill sponsor for second substitute House Bill 1515, as well as representatives from the City of Seattle and the Seattle Center regarding the expanded alcohol service areas rulemaking. And there were initially some significant differences in opinion, both internally at the LCB and externally among stakeholders on how to address certain aspects of the bill, including things like the definition of multi-day event, which wasn't defined in the bill, and the provisions surrounding direct line of sight requirements. But through dialogue with these key stakeholders, we were able to find what we believe to be mutually agreeable solutions. Finalized draft was posted to our webpage last Friday. And with this revised draft, we're going to be giving folks a couple more weeks to ensure that we've adequately addressed everyone's concerns before moving to the CR 102 phase. So we're doing our due diligence and making really good progress. And at this point, we can reasonably expect to have the CR 102 package ready for our next scheduled meeting in November.
Great.
Moving on to petitions. Following my update, Denise will be presenting a petition we received on August 18th regarding concerns of unfair business practices among cannabis retailers. And we also received another petition on September 28th requesting that the agency update our social equity rules to ease the restrictions surrounding the sale or transfer of a license by a social equity applicant. And since this one is due on November 28th, we'll be presenting it at the next board meeting in November. So that pretty much covers it for rules. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Any questions for staff? Well, great. Thank you so much, Kevin. And just Daniel, I see that you are on here this morning. I just want to welcome you back. I'm certainly happy and glad that parents get to take time when they have and welcome a new one into their family, which is critical. And but I am also equally glad that the time has come for you to be back with us, and I look forward to connecting soon. So welcome back. All right, thank you, Kevin. We'll transition right on to our next item, which is board approval for CR 103 for acceptable forms of identification with Jeff.
Thank you.
Morning, Jeff.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Volendroff and board members Garrett and Holmes. Tomorrow, we will present the CR 103 permanent rulemaking package to request approval to file the permanent rule updates about what acceptable forms of identification that liquor licensees may use to verify a customer's age for eligibility to purchase alcohol, which is in WAC 314.11.025, and also a matching rules update for cannabis as well, which is with the matching rule for cannabis customers that is in WAC 314.55.150. This rule regulates which forms of ID that customers can use to enter the retail store and also to purchase cannabis products. For background of this rule, we look back to April 2023 when the board accepted a petition to add the federal global entry card to the list of acceptable forms of identification that liquor licensees may use to verify a person's age for eligibility to purchase alcohol. Later in July 2023, the board accepted a portion of a completely different petition that requested removal of some outdated references to RCW 66.16.040 from 3 other WAC sections, which were the definition section in 314.01.005 and a WAC having to do with Mass 12 and 13 permits, WAC 314.17.025, and also WAC 314.17.110. Because both of those petitions addressed acceptable forms of identification regarding the sale, service, possession, and consumption of alcohol, it was logical and cost-effective to combine these 2 petitions into a single rulemaking project. In addition, the similar requirements in cannabis rules contained in WAC 314.55.150 have not been revised since in content since the regulation was first created in 2013. These permanent rule amendments update acceptable forms of identification for both alcohol and cannabis customers, and also restate that alcohol and cannabis licensees must follow other applicable state laws during the course of their operations, including Chapter 4960 RCW, the Washington State Law Against Discrimination. So tomorrow we will present for your approval the packet to file the CR 103. If the CR 103 regarding acceptable forms of identification is approved, we will file the rules with the Office of the Code Revisor, and these rule updates will take effect on November 8th, 2025. Thank you, and can answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Seeing no questions, we will see you at the board meeting tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Denise, you're up next with the rules petition review and consideration of unfair cannabis business practices.
Good morning, Chair Vollendroff and board members Garrett and Holmes. At tomorrow's board meeting, I will present the Director's Office response and recommendation regarding a petition for rulemaking we received on August 18th from David Sanders of Goliath Pines LLC, who does business as The Weedery in Vancouver, Washington. This petition asks the LCB to take action to prevent unfair, illegitimate business practices by certain chains of cannabis retailers that the petitioner alleges are in violation of WAC 314.55.018, and also asks LCB to clarify this rule, including adding appropriate penalties. Under WAC 314.55.018, subsection 1, no cannabis industry member or licensee shall enter into any agreement which causes undue influence over another licensee or industry member. Also under WAC 314.55.018, subsection 2, no cannabis producer or processor shall advance, and no cannabis licensee shall receive money or money's worth under an agreement written or unwritten. The petitioner alleges that 2 retail chains with a combined 9 stores are pressuring processors, cannabis processors, into not doing business with the petitioner's store, thereby creating undue influence over those processors. The petitioner indicates this practice reduces the availability of products he is able to buy and then sell at his store, and this practice is negatively impacting his business. The rules team also forwarded his petition with his concerns to our enforcement and education staff. Engrossed Substitute Senate Bill 5403 passed this last session through the legislature, addresses coordinated pricing practices related to the types of concerns described by the petitioner. Currently, RCW 6950-325 subsection 3B limits an individual retailer licensee and all other persons or entities with a financial or other ownership interest in the business operating under the license to a total of 5 retail cannabis licenses. Engrossed Substitute Senate Bill 5403 amends RCW 695325 to define financial interest, and this new definition includes any assistance, coordination, or recommendation for the purchase of cannabis products whereupon pricing is coordinated or discounted. Engrossed Substitute Senate Bill 5403 goes into effect January 1 of 2026. And as you are aware, LCB rulemaking to implement this legislation is underway. The CR 101 to initiate rulemaking was filed on July 23rd of this year, and our internal LCB rules project team has been meeting to develop draft rules, which include amending WAC 314-55018 that the petitioner references. And at this point, we plan to conduct stakeholder engagement within the next month. Because Engrossed Substitute Senate Bill 5403 addresses concerns that are included in this petition, including coordinated pricing among more than 5 retail licenses, and rulemaking to implement this legislation is currently underway, the Director's Office is recommending the board deny this petition. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, board member questions? Board member Holmes?
Yes, thank you. Just a quick comment. I hope it's clear to listeners that, the board is undertaking a deep dive into this. And I welcome that. I look forward to listening and learning. And the fact that we would be denying petitions, does not mean that the subject matter isn't going to be addressed. It's not unlike the Alcohol Advisory Committee when we learn, of course, that, wine consumption is down in the state. We need to be concerned about the financial outcomes for these industries that we regulate. And I welcome this deeper dive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just follow up on those comments. Again, we will make a decision in tomorrow's meeting about what we do with this particular petition. However, regardless of the outcome, we heard loud and clear in the Cannabis Advisory Council meeting that there are concerns. We've gotten emails. So we do plan to address this through legislation that was passed this last session. So appreciate the comments. All right, that takes us to our last agenda item, which is board member and executive assistant reports. Anything from board members this morning?
Yeah.
Thank you, board member Garrett. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to let you and Pete know that yesterday, Alta Point Consultant, they completed the transfer of all of the registrations for the new round of licensing and the supporting documents that they reviewed and scored. And those documents are currently being uploaded into our system. But also the contractor that's doing the double blind lottery received the registrants who were the highest scores for the double blind lotteries. And there was about 21 that's going into the double blind lottery for the 15 available license that we have. So that is going on, and we probably should know no later than tomorrow who the 15 are.
Oh,
so
great.
That's the point that we're at with that. Also, I'm going to be meeting with Gretchen this afternoon to go over and talk about the makeup of the Cannabis Advisory Council. And I'm looking to add 3 additions to the council, one being a medical patient and the other 2 being a social equity retailer from each side of the state, one from the east side and one from this side of the state to the advisory council.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that update very much. As you well know, we can't speak to one another, and I've gotten several emails, as I'm assuming the rest of you have, about the makeup of the advisory council, particularly suggesting a medical representative, patient representative on the board. I think that's a great addition, so thanks for that update. Anything else? All right, Deb or Gretchen, anything from either one of you?
Nothing today, Chair. Thank you.
All right. Well, again, Gretchen, welcome back. And I will now end the meeting of the board caucus. So thanks very much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.